It was supposed to be just another Thursday, the kind of morning where the world wakes up slowly, coffee brewing in quiet kitchens, morning news murmuring in the background, emails waiting to be read. But on this morning, something else was waiting. A video. A single video. By 8:12 a.m., it had already crossed 5 major platforms. By 9:47 a.m., it had been viewed more than 11 million times. There was no warning, no time to fact-check, just outrage. The footage showed Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in what looked like a late-night Zoom call. The lighting was poor, the background a cluttered home office, and her words? Explosive. Ignorant leeches, she said. Low-class parasites. Her voice was sharp, dripping with contempt. She appeared to be shouting at her own voters. And the internet? It exploded. Clips flooded Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. Right-wing commentators labeled it the shame of Texas. Cable news began playing it on loop, each frame slowed down for maximum impact. It didn't matter whether it was real, it felt real, and that was enough to burn. By noon, Jasmine Crockett's name was no longer trending. It was being dragged. News outlets didn't hold back. Headlines read, "Democrat meltdown caught on camera. The shame of Texas, Crockett's career over before lunch." The video was now clipped, filtered, and edited with dramatic flair. Each insult looped in slow motion. Every bleeped curse word made rhythmic, like it was made for TV. And that's exactly where it went. Across cable news anchors delivered the footage with raised eyebrows and smug tones. They asked questions they already knew the answers to. Is this the real Jasmine Crockett? Should someone this unstable be in office? Is this what the Democratic Party stands for now? Social media turned vicious. Thousands of comments flooded in. Some called her a disgrace. Others demanded her resignation. Many sent threats, real threats. One message read, "You don't deserve that seat. You deserve a cell." And it didn't stop there. Outside her Dallas office, protesters gathered. Some held signs that said, "Resign now," "Fake leader," "Liar in office." But perhaps the deepest cut came quietly. An email from a civil rights organization that had supported Jasmine for years. "We are suspending our endorsement until further notice. This language does not reflect our values." And just like that, she wasn't just being judged, she was being abandoned. By allies, by the system, by the very people she fought for. She didn't cry. She didn't post a tweet. She didn't call a press conference. She just sat, alone in her office, her face stone still, her phone face down, the same video looping again and again on her screen. Each frame was a lie, each word a weapon, every insult a line she had never spoken. But the internet believed she did. Her donors believed it. Even some of her colleagues believed it. And still, she didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't explain. She leaned in toward the monitor, her eyes cold, unblinking. And she whispered, "This never happened." Then she hit replay, again and again. Not because she didn't believe it, but because she needed to understand just how real the lie looked. This wasn't a scandal, it was sabotage. And Jasmine Crockett was done staying quiet. She didn't run to PR, she didn't hire a crisis manager. She built something else, a digital war room. No phones, no press, no leaks. Just 4 people, handpicked, trusted, brilliant. A forensic video analyst from MIT, a cybersecurity veteran from the DOJ, an AI linguistics expert, and her own tech-savvy campaign advisor. They didn't meet in the main office. They met in the basement of a co-working space downtown, off the grid, away from press, away from Washington noise. Jasmine stood in front of a whiteboard, her voice low, her tone absolute. "I don't want speculation. I want proof. Pixel by pixel. Frame by frame. We're not just defending me. We're defending what's real." And that was it. No coffee breaks, no small talk. Just screens. Just silence. And the sound of digital forensics breathing life into the truth. The first thing they noticed was the blink. Too slow, too mechanical, almost robotic. Then came the jawline. Frame by frame, the team zoomed in. At 1/8 playback speed, the skin around her neck glitched. Her jaw twitched too perfectly. The shadows didn't move with her face. Then they hit the audio. They ran a spectral analysis, and what they found was Frankenstein. The voice wasn't one recording, it was 7. 7 different speeches Jasmine had given over the past 3 years, spliced, compressed, tone-shifted, then laced with synthetic venom. Every word she said in that viral video was a lie built from truth. It was terrifying because it looked real, but the forensics didn't lie. The blink rate was off. The jawline was off. The vocal frequencies didn't match her natural range. This wasn't just some troll online. This was high-end studio-grade manipulation. And when the analyst looked up from the screen, his face had gone pale. "Deepfake," he said. "No doubt. And not amateur work either. This is top shelf." Jasmine didn't flinch. She leaned forward and whispered, "Find out who paid for it." The turning point came from a line of code. Buried in the metadata, past the file name, past the timestamps, was a string of server activity, an IP address, from Novi Sad, Serbia. The analyst froze. Wait, this was uploaded from overseas. They traced the route. The file had been processed through a GPU rendering cluster, routed through 3 masked proxies, and rendered by a now-defunct domain. Its name, warroomdigital.net. Jasmine's breath caught. That wasn't just a random tech name. War Room was the nickname Roger Stone once used to describe his media disinformation ops. He even bragged about it in a 2020 interview. "People don't believe the truth anymore. They believe the last thing they saw." Now Jasmine knew what they had just seen was built to be the last thing voters would remember before casting a ballot. But there was more. The team traced the cloud rendering purchase to a cryptocurrency wallet. The wallet had previously sent 4 payments to a PAC connected to Roger Stone's legal defense fund. The dates aligned. The names matched, and suddenly the lie had bones. It wasn't chaos, it was engineering. She stood, walked to the whiteboard, drew a line from Serbia to Florida, then circled one name, Roger Stone. And with a voice colder than steel, she said, "Get me a subpoena, and get the cameras ready." This wasn't just damage control anymore. This was war. It didn't come from a whistleblower. It didn't come from a leak. It came from a backup file. Tucked inside a forgotten server cache buried in a zip folder labeled Promo Assets was a single PDF. And what it revealed hit harder than any headline. The file was an invoice from a company called Freedomcast Media. Client confidential political client, Tier A, amount $84,900. Project AI video package, Crockett. Hostile tone variant. Line items included voice cloning, vocal profile match, Crockett. Facial mapping and emotion overlay. Angry tone algorithm enhancement. Emotional impact testing, Southern voter base. Final product, MP4 delivery plus optimized for viral uptake. But it was the internal notes section that made the room go silent. Instruction: make her look like she hates her own voters. No ambiguity, no wiggle room. It wasn't satire, it wasn't parody. It was political character assassination for hire. Jasmine stared at the screen. She didn't blink. her voice barely above a whisper. They didn't want to beat me. They wanted to erase me. And for the first time, her team understood the full weight of what had been done. This wasn't about discrediting a congresswoman. This was about rewriting reality. The invoice was bad, but what came next? Worse. One of the analysts dug deeper into the project files, specifically into the user credentials used to process the video files. And that's when they found it. Buried inside a log file next to rendering timestamps and server calls was a registered user account. The handle r.stone22. It didn't take long. The email tied to that handle had once been used to manage ad buys for Roger Stone's 2020 campaign. It wasn't just a match. It was a direct digital fingerprint. From AI rendering to financial pipelines to user credentials, the line now pointed straight to Roger Stone. Jasmine stood still for a long moment. Then she said, not as a question, but as a verdict, "Mr. R is Roger Stone." She didn't say a word at first. She just stood up, slowly, deliberately. The room was quiet, only the hum of monitors and the faint scratch of a marker. Jasmine walked to the whiteboard. She didn't blink, didn't hesitate. She took the red marker in her hand and drew a line across the board, Serbia, Florida. Then she circled the name at the end of that line, Roger Stone. Not once, not twice. She circled it 3 times. Then finally, she turned around, voice low, cold, and sharp enough to slice concrete. "Get me a subpoena and get the cameras ready." Because Jasmine Crockett wasn't just defending her name anymore. She was about to go on the offense. And when she did, she was bringing receipts. He didn't walk in, he made an entrance. White pinstripe suit, black silk pocket square, gold cufflinks gleaming under the lights, and the gum. Always the gum chewing, like time didn't apply to him. Roger Stone walked into the Capitol hearing room like he was headed for a photo shoot, not a federal hearing. He didn't glance at the committee, didn't nod at the staffers, didn't even acknowledge Jasmine Crockett. He only looked at the cameras. He adjusted his cuff, tucked in his jacket, flashed a smile like this was a red carpet. He sat down, leaned back, and grinned like a man who had survived 1,000 scandals and thought this one would be no different. To him, this wasn't a reckoning. It was an opportunity. Another stage, another show, another scene where he could play the misunderstood genius or the persecuted patriot. But this time, he wasn't the one writing the script. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't pound the table. She didn't even look at Roger Stone at first. She stood up, took a deep breath, and said calmly, "You destroyed me with fiction. Now let me rebuild with fact." No drama, no theatrics, just a USB drive and a truth the country wasn't ready for. She plugged it in. First video, a real clip Jasmine at a town hall in Dallas, answering hard questions. Passionate, firm, but respectful. Then she played the deepfake. Same posture, same angle. But the words, venomous, distorted, cruel. 2 screens side by side, 2 Jasmines, only one real. The room didn't move. Nobody coughed. Even Roger Stone stopped chewing. The silence was louder than any gavel. And then Jasmine turned to the panel and said, "You believed a lie. But the damage was real. My staff was threatened. My donors vanished. My mother got hate mail." She looked at Stone finally. "You hid behind code. I'm standing behind truth." The room dimmed. The technician stepped up. Not a politician, not a lawyer. Just a man in glasses and a gray hoodie holding a laser pointer and the truth. He pulled up the frame, paused it, zoomed in. Right below the cheekbone, a flicker. not visible to the naked eye, but under spectral analysis, a misalignment. This, he said, circling the area, is what we call a phantom shadow. It's not how real light falls on a human face. It's generated, artificial. Murmurs filled the room, but he wasn't done. He tapped his laptop, pulled up a second screen, a code trail. This distortion pattern only appears in one known software, Etherframe 2.1, and this version, very specific, was discontinued after just 8 months. He paused, then dropped the hammer. Etherframe 2.1 was developed by Stratotone AI Labs, a group once funded by the Liberty Forge PAC. That PAC was chaired until 2021 by Roger Stone. Gasps. Heads turned. Even Roger's smirk twitched. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wasn't polished. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. David Brooks, senior video engineer, and the man who helped fake the fall of Jasmine Crockett. His hands trembled. His voice cracked, but his words sliced through the courtroom like glass. I was told to fabricate emotion, to make her look unstable, angry, elitist. I didn't ask why, I just followed orders. A hush fell over the room. He opened his laptop, clicked through folders, showed rendering drafts. This one, we tried a furious eye twitch, didn't look real enough. So we added a jaw clench and reduced her blink rate, made her feel more menacing. The committee leaned in. One congresswoman whispered, "He built the lie frame by frame." Brooks nodded. "We didn't use stock tools. We were given private code libraries and told to route our render through a cloud VPN registered under a shell firm based in Serbia." He paused. Then came the bombshell. The payments came through a PAC-affiliated wallet. With a note, "Deliver before midterms. Quiet. Clean. No digital fingerprints." Jasmine didn't speak. She didn't have to. For the first time, someone from the other side cracked. David Brooks wiped his palms on his jeans. He'd already shown the render files, the metadata, the payments. But then he opened a text thread, encrypted, dated 6 weeks before the scandal broke. One message, 9 words. Black text on a gray screen. "Make it look like she hates her own voters." The room exhaled sharply. Brooks looked up. Voice steadier now, no more shaking. This wasn't a political hit piece. It wasn't an ad campaign. It was an assassination. Not of her body, but of her voice. Gasps. Someone cursed under their breath. He continued. They didn't want to debate her. They wanted to erase her, and they nearly did. Jasmine closed her eyes for a second. Not out of defeat, but out of clarity. A war had been declared on truth, and someone had finally said it out loud. No one interrupted her now. No smug faces, no snarky coughs, no cheap jabs. The air in the room thick, heavy, honest. Jasmine stood at the center, not as a politician, not as a headline, but as a human being. A woman who had been digitally skinned alive by a machine built not to criticize, but to erase. Roger Stone folded his arms, silent, not smiling. David Brooks, the engineer, looked smaller in his chair than any criminal ever had in a courtroom. And for once, the congresspeople just listened. No one moved. Jasmine took a breath. This wasn't a smear. This wasn't slander. This was character homicide done in silence with code and crypto while the world watched. No one blinked. Even the staunchest conservatives in the room looked away from Roger Stone, because in that moment everyone saw who she really was, and more painfully, what they had nearly destroyed. Roger Stone had been quiet too long, but now he snapped. Slamming his palm on the table, he stood with a fury that rattled the room. "You're making me a villain. This is a show trial, a scripted drama, and I'm just your punchline." The gallery jolted. But Jasmine, she didn't move, didn't blink. She just turned to him, voice low, measured, surgical. "Roger, you wrote your own role." Silence, the kind that echoes. "I didn't make you the villain. You auditioned, performed, and directed the scene. All I did was roll the tape." Gasps again. Not from shock, but from clarity. The illusion had cracked. The puppeteer had pulled too hard, and the strings tangled around his own neck. Even the cameramen lowered their lenses, because this wasn't entertainment anymore. It was revelation. She didn't yell. She didn't raise a finger. She just pressed play. From the overhead speaker, the room was filled with a voice confident, oily, unmistakable. Roger Stone. On tape, clear as daylight. We don't need them to believe us. We just need them to doubt everything else. Silence. But not the quiet kind, the kind that crushes. Some dropped their pens. Some shifted in their seats. One woman in the front row covered her mouth. The audio wasn't long, just 8 seconds, but it hit harder than any argument, any chart, any subpoena. Because now they knew. They weren't just manipulated, they were targeted, used, played. The final blow didn't explode, it landed. And everything shifted. Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just stood as the speaker banged the gavel and read the final count. House Resolution 882, the Synthetic Media Accountability Act, passed. Gasps, applause, and then with 72 Republican votes. That was the moment. Not just for her, not just for the victims of AI smears, but for truth itself. The act demanded full disclosure of synthetic media origins, mandatory watermarking of AI-generated video, and criminal penalties for intentional use of deepfakes to manipulate political outcomes. Roger Stone never expected this. He walked in thinking he'd stir controversy. Instead, he inspired legislation. Justice didn't roar, it signed its name into law. No champagne, no applause, no cameras. Just Jasmine standing alone in her office, staring out the window toward the Capitol steps where days earlier they had called for her resignation. In her hand, a red USB drive. Not fancy, not engraved, just plastic. But it was a sword, and she wielded it quietly. That one file, the one that proved it was all fake, had done more than just clear her name. It had changed how America sees truth. Outside, the sun was setting. The city moved on. But inside, she knew some victories aren't made for celebration. They're made for survival. And survival requires silence, discipline, and the kind of strength that never gets headlines. She tucked the drive away, not as a trophy, but as a warning. Victory doesn't end a war. Sometimes it opens a new front. Just a week after the Capitol hearing, Jasmine Crockett introduced a new proposal, one aimed squarely at the next battlefield, state elections. The bill, the AI Electoral Integrity Act. It called for mandatory pre-certification of all political ads using synthetic media, biometric authentication for official candidate content, creation of a bipartisan task force to monitor deepfake influence across states. Some called it overreach, others called it overdue. But Jasmine didn't wait for consensus. She launched a nonprofit, Voices That Can't Be Deepfaked. Its mission: to protect activists, voters, and public servants from weaponized deception, to build a firewall around truth. And this time, she wasn't alone. Volunteers flooded in. Whistleblowers came forward. Even tech firms joined the cause. Because what started as an attack on one woman had become a reckoning for an entire nation. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The chamber was silent, not out of respect, but but because there were no words left to fight her. Jasmine Crockett stood before them not as a victim, not even as a victor, but as something rarer. A witness who survived the fire and came back to warn us all. And then she said it. You didn't kill the truth, you killed trust. And America does not forgive that. No one clapped. They just stared. Because somewhere deep inside, they knew she wasn't just talking to Roger Stone. She was talking to all of us. To a nation addicted to outrage, numb to facts, hungry for spectacle but starved of substance. That line, that one sentence, would be quoted in op-eds, textbooks, protest signs. It would be carved into history, not because it was loud, but because it was undeniably true. In the age of AI, truth isn't just fragile, it's hunted. Jasmine Crockett's battle wasn't just about clearing her name. It was about defending a world where facts matter, where lies don't get the last word, and where silence is not surrender, it's strategy. The lesson: always question what you see, dig deeper. Don't let algorithms decide what's real. Because sometimes the war for truth isn't fought with weapons, it's fought with code, courage, and one person willing to stand up. If this story moved you, if you believe the truth is worth fighting for, then don't just scroll. Subscribe to AZ Exposed, where real stories break through digital lies. Because when truth is under attack, silence is not an option. Hit the bell, leave a comment, and share this with someone who still believes integrity matters.